Hey, look, it's Snowshine again. Not a surprise. Man, I really cannot avoid the Snowshine main allegations anymore now, can I? Maybe I should just embrace it. Alright, well anyway, I'm trying to do another team comp, and I'm wanting to stick into the physical side of things, so I have one that I think is kind of fun to play, but it's definitely a lot more involved. Now let me go ahead and just showcase how this team is going to look like when it's in action before I really break it down. But before I can do that, we need to bring in our good old friend Jimmy over here. Hey Jimmy, do you mind hitting this shield for 1 second, just with everything you've got? Thanks, buddy.
Why you bullying me?
Alright, I think that was a pretty interesting display there. Anyway, let's go ahead and break down how this team comp works. So one of the more important things that I've not really explained on Snowshine is that when she does her parry, she actually is inflicting knockback, which if this is the first physical status you're applying on an enemy, this applies vulnerable to them. Granted, at the same time, because she's been attacked, Ember also triggers. Now, Ember, on her combo attack, inflicts knocked down, and this actually will knock down the enemy. So from here, what you then do is you use Chen's actual combat skill, which forces a lift on a knockdown enemy. This situation of a lift being applied on a knockdown enemy triggers Depan's combo attack, and that is the whole chain in the simplest of ways. Now this isn't the only way to potentially trigger this whole ordeal. I believe you can actually use Depan's ultimate and then follow up with a lift, and that is really all you need to do there. There's a lot of ways that you can play this, so a lot of it comes down to reading the battlefield as the fight goes on, and that can make things a little bit trickier because, well, it's a lot harder to pay attention to everything that's going on the battlefield when you're fighting. That said, this team is not without its own downfalls. One of the biggest one is that you have to use 2 skills just to do the simplest form of this combo. That is a lot of SP management that you'll have to do, especially since you're only running with Snowshine and not actually including Arknights on this team. I do want to quickly say that I believe the devs are aware that SP is an issue, so this might be less of a concern in the future than it is right now. We'll see how that particular downfall plays out. Another thing to note is that certain enemies, and I believe most bosses for the most part, are pretty much immune to those particular physical statuses. You could still get additional stagger as well as getting the effect to display on the screen, but I don't believe they actually are influenced by it. I've noticed a handful of characters can't simply be lifted, and a good number of them also can't be knocked down. So this might actually put a wrench in the plan of this whole entire team as a whole. I've noticed that this team does pretty well against large groups of enemies just because of the AoE of Depan, also pretty good against elite enemies that are vulnerable to physical statuses. So I guess it's not the end of the world for this particular comp. Not to mention, the duo that I have, which is Snowshine and Ember, are already a pretty good team together in the first place, so you don't have to worry about a lot of things if you've got those two properly built. Granted, I'm still trying to practice this team and figure out more ways to get them to work, especially since, well, I think there are ways that you can actually trigger this whole chain without having to go through the whole process of spending 2 SP. So there's definitely other ways to go about this, and I'm still going to have to keep practicing this team to figure out what I need to do with it. Granted, I'm not sure what other teams I could really come up with and if I try to keep Snowshine in, just because of how few operators there are currently available in the beta. That's not a bad thing, by the way. They have a good number of characters already, and there's a lot to play with in the beginning. But there are still some things that I'm trying to figure out and tinker with, and especially since there's an operator I do want to try to rope into these teams named Lefeng, who I'm not sure how to really build him yet, so I'll figure that out sooner or later. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this particular video. I'm going to go ahead and just let this particular clip play out for the most part, just to kind of show you what this team looks like at a pretty macro level. You'll definitely see the weaknesses of it at the same time as I'm not necessarily the best player, but hopefully this does give you an idea for how this team can work, and I think this also is starting to show just how interesting this game can be in terms of mixing and matching operators and getting things to work around their combo skills, as well as just their kits in general. So, hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys all again real soon.
巧妙の道筋はここに。
一気にやるよ。